They told you fate was written in stone. They said your limits were your destiny. They looked at your scars and saw failure. But I see a soul forged in fire. The world wants you quiet, small, obedient to the gravity of mediocrity. But you were born to defy gravity. Not to escape your fate, but to embrace it so fiercely it becomes your wings. This is Amor Fati, not just to endure what life throws at you, but to love it, to look at your pain and say, "You are mine, and because of you, I rise." This is not comfort. This is not safety. This is the brutal joy of owning every moment of your life, even the ones that tried to break you. Because if you cannot love your suffering, you will never own your story. And if you cannot own your story, you will remain a spectator in your own life. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this, not just in theory but in agony. A man tormented by illness, rejection, isolation, and yet he did not kneel. He turned his torment into thunder. He forged truth from despair. He wrote not for the weak-hearted, but for those willing to walk the edge. And now I ask you, what are you doing with your fire? What are you doing with the chaos inside you? Because here's the truth. You don't find purpose by chasing happiness. You find it by standing in the storm and saying, "This is where I belong. This is who I am. I am not waiting for destiny. I am destiny." Do you feel it? That ache in your chest, that voice that whispers, "There's more"? That's not fantasy. That's your future calling you back. That's your soul remembering who it was before the world told it to shrink. So we begin here with mindset. Not the kind sold in self-help books filled with empty promises and plastic smiles, but the kind carved into the bones of warriors, rebels, creators. The mindset that whispers, even when the world burns, "I choose to rise." Because you don't get to choose what life gives you. You only choose how you meet it. Mindset is not positive thinking. It is powerful thinking. It is refusing to be a leaf in the wind and becoming the storm instead. Thomas Edison didn't wait for the perfect moment. He failed thousands of times, not because he was unlucky, but because his mindset said, "Failure is the tuition of greatness." He didn't complain about the dark. He invented the light. That is Amor Fati. That is the mind of the one who transforms fate into fuel. And when you stop fighting your reality, when you meet it eye to eye, you begin to see something incredible. Belief is not just a feeling. Belief is a decision. A decision to bet on yourself even when there's nothing left but ashes. Carnegie didn't start with power. He started with nothing, an immigrant child in poverty. But he believed in something greater, that steel could rebuild a nation, and that his will could outlast his circumstance. So ask yourself, what do you believe about yourself when the world goes quiet, when no one's watching? Because belief isn't built on applause. It's built in silence, sweat, and scars. You want to rise above your fate? Then believe deep in your marrow that you were made to bend reality, not be broken by it. And once belief is rooted, clarity becomes your compass. Clarity is not knowing everything. It's knowing what matters. It's seeing through the noise and locking eyes with your target. Most people drown in distraction, scrolling, searching, drifting, but not you. You weren't born for passive consumption. You were born for conscious creation. You were born to build your life like a monument to the soul you refused to betray. Walt Disney was fired for lack of imagination. Imagine that. The man who built entire worlds was told he had nothing to offer, but he saw it, clearer than anyone else. He had a vision, not yet born, but breathing inside him. That's clarity. It's not about having a roadmap. It's about knowing your North Star, even in the fog. It's about walking with purpose when the ground beneath you shakes. And that purpose, that's where everything begins to align. Because when you find purpose, you stop asking for life to be easy. You start asking for strength to meet it. You stop hoping to avoid pain. You start hoping to make it mean something. Abraham Lincoln was not born a giant. He was raised in a log cabin, battled depression, failed in politics over and over. But his purpose, his belief that a nation could rise above its own darkness, that purpose kept him going. That purpose built his spine. Purpose is not found in books. It is forged in suffering. It is revealed when everything is taken from you, and all that remains is the fire inside. You don't need permission to pursue your purpose. You need courage. You need the audacity to say, "I was not born to survive this life. I was born to shape it." And once you declare your purpose, discipline must follow. Discipline is not punishment. It is devotion. It is showing up when motivation is gone. It is keeping your word when no one is watching. It is rising with the sun, bleeding into your craft, even when the world is still asleep. Discipline is divine defiance, the refusal to let your mood dictate your mission. Henry Ford revolutionized the world with the assembly line, not because he was smarter, but because he was relentless. While others dreamt of comfort, he dreamed of momentum. Discipline is the bridge between purpose and power. It is the daily decision to align your actions with your identity, not who you were yesterday, but who you are becoming. And once discipline is in motion, action becomes the heartbeat, not perfect action, not fearless action, but bold, messy, unrelenting movement forward. Most people wait. Wait for a sign, wait for clarity, wait for someone to choose them. But if you wait for life to give you permission, you'll die with your music still inside you. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, but the how begins with action. Even if you're crawling, even if you're limping, even if your voice shakes and your hands tremble, take the next step." Because movement creates momentum, and momentum carves miracles out of mountains. Every empire was built one brick at a time. Every legacy was born in the fire of relentless action. The universe does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your will. You see, the world doesn't care about what you intended to do. It only remembers what you did. And most people never act because they're afraid to fail. But failure is not the opposite of progress. It's the proof of it. Look at every monument ever built, every business empire, every artistic masterpiece. They are all cemeteries of failed attempts. They are grave sites of former versions of the dream, versions that had to die so that one could live. You want to rise above your fate? Then stop trying to avoid pain and start learning how to command it. Because pain is not the enemy, it is the instructor. When you act in spite of pain, you become untouchable. Not because you don't feel the fire, but because you've made it your forge. The man who learns to love his suffering is the man who cannot be conquered. But how do you hold this line? How do you keep moving through storms that seem endless? The answer is one word: gratitude, not the soft kind, not the kind that says thank you only when things are easy. No, I'm talking about savage gratitude, the kind that looks at heartbreak, disappointment, failure, and says, thank you for sharpening me. The Roman Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He faced war, betrayal, plague, and still he wrote, "The obstacle is the way," not because he was naive, but because he understood. Every wound is an invitation. Every hardship is a hammer, forging you into who you were meant to become. So don't curse your fate, study it. Don't fear your path, wield it. Be grateful for every locked door, every no, every failure. Every time the world turned its back on you, it was showing you what you no longer needed. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be used by life, completely, fully, ferociously, until there is nothing left but ash and legend. And once you understand this, you become adaptable. Because the man who is rigid shatters, but the one who bends, he becomes the wind. You must become fluid, like water, shape-shifting, unstoppable, able to flow around barriers or crash through them, but always moving forward. Bruce Lee said, "Be like water." Because water doesn't complain, it adapts. It finds a way. It wears down stone. It becomes the shape of its container. But it never loses its essence. So must you. Change your strategy, never your standard. Adapt your approach, never your ambition. When the path is blocked, you don't sit and weep. You don't beg the gods to open a door, you become the battering ram. And in the process, you build something more valuable than victory. You build resilience. And resilience, true resilience, is not the absence of pain. It is the presence of something deeper, something unbreakable, a root system that digs so deep into your purpose that no storm can uproot you. When life tried to crush Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison only carved his purpose into stone. He emerged not bitter, but unshakable, because he knew fate does not define the man defines the fate. Resilience is a decision. It is not genetic. It is not granted. It is chosen. Chosen every time you stand back up. chosen every time you keep moving, even when you have every excuse to quit. And this, my friend, is where the game changes. Not in grand gestures, but in daily rebellion, the rebellion of getting up, the rebellion of pushing forward, the rebellion of becoming the one thing fate cannot kill, a soul on fire. But you cannot burn eternally if you do not learn. Learning is the discipline of kings. It is the humility to say, I don't know it all, but I will become it all. You are not a finished product. You are a rough draft written in blood and dreams, and every day you are the author. So study your failures. Devour wisdom like it's oxygen. Learn from those who've walked through hell and came out carrying water for others. Nietzsche didn't write his truths from a place of comfort. He studied suffering like it was scripture. He pulled philosophy from madness, and in doing so, gave us the keys to our own cages. You must become a lifelong student, not of information, but of transformation. Learn from the greats, yes, but also learn from your own silence, from your darkest nights, from your broken hopes. Because in those places, your highest self is whispering. Now listen, this is the part no one talks about. You can have the mindset, the belief, the clarity, the purpose, the action, the discipline, and still lose. Yes. You can do everything right and still be defeated, because the world does not owe you a reward for your effort. The gods do not hand out trophies for hustle. But here's what they do offer. If you persist through the fire, if you embrace your fate, if you meet life not with fear but with ferocity, you will not just rise, you will transcend. You will not merely win, you will become. Because Amor Fati is not about outcomes, it is about transformation. It is about becoming someone so powerful, so focused, so on purpose, that even defeat becomes sacred. You rise above fate not by escaping it, but by owning it so fully that it becomes a part of your legend. The suffering, the setbacks, the loneliness, the doubt, all of it becomes the soil for your greatness. And the world will ask, how did you do it? And you will say, I embraced everything. I rejected nothing. I loved my fate, and that made me unstoppable. So many run from their story, ashamed of the chapters they didn't choose. But let me tell you this. The most powerful men and women in history didn't edit their lives to look clean. They let the dirt stay. They let the scars show, because every line of pain carved a deeper meaning into their mission. Do you understand what that means? It means the very thing you've been trying to bury, your shame, your mistakes, your heartbreak, that's the birthplace of your power. Not your mask, not your polish, your rawness. The world is desperate for authenticity, for the unfiltered, for the unashamed. And you, yes, you, are the answer to that hunger. But only if you stop pretending to be perfect and start standing in your full, fierce truth. Let the world see you rise with your wounds. That is Amor Fati. It is not passive acceptance. It is active transformation. It is the alchemy of taking the unacceptable and turning it into the unforgettable. When you live this way, when you walk this path with your head high and your heart open, you become dangerous. Why? Because nothing can stop a soul who's no longer afraid of breaking. They tried to bury you in expectations, in fear, in distraction. But you were a seed, and seeds don't fear the darkness. They need it. You were planted, not punished. And now, it's time to rise. But rising doesn't mean running. It means returning to the core, the why behind the war, the fire behind your forward motion. Look around you. Most people are sleepwalking, sedated by convenience, distracted by noise, living on autopilot and calling it life. But you are not most people. You feel the pull, don't you? That primal call to remember who you are. Before the world civilized your spirit, that's not nostalgia. That's your destiny banging on the walls of your comfort zone. Open the door. You have greatness in your bloodline. Not because someone famous raised you, but because suffering refined you, because hardship chose you. And you answered. You didn't quit when it got hard. You didn't numb when it got dark. You stayed. You fought. You kept breathing. That is enough. And now you rise not to escape your pain, but to honor it. Let your life be a cathedral of everything you've endured. Let your voice echo with the strength of 1,000 sleepless nights. Let your vision cut through the haze of mediocrity. Because clarity is rebellion, focus is resistance, and staying true to your path in a world of a million distractions, that is warriorhood. Do you know why so many never fulfill their purpose? Because they think greatness is supposed to feel good. They think passion means pleasure. They think alignment means ease. No, greatness feels like pressure, like discipline, like doubt followed by decision. It feels like waking up with nothing left and still finding a reason to show up. It feels like being misunderstood, mocked, doubted, and still choosing to move forward without applause. Because purpose doesn't always pay you in comfort. It pays you in truth. And if you can sit with that truth long enough, deeply enough, it will crack you open and reveal who you were born to be. This is the kind of life Nietzsche spoke of, a life that requires your full strength, your full presence, your full rebellion against passivity. He didn't write for the masses. He wrote for the few, the dangerous few, who would take the chaos of existence and carve their name into it. He didn't preach comfort. He demanded courage. He demanded that you will your life into meaning, even if the universe remains silent. So let me ask you again, what will you do with your fire? Will you keep it locked away, or will you set your world ablaze with it? Because you only get one shot at this life, one opportunity to turn your pain into purpose, one chance to say, I did not die with my music inside me. Don't waste it trying to fit in. Don't waste it waiting for permission. Don't waste it living a life someone else wrote for you. Burn the script, write your own. This is your myth. This is your legend. This is your war cry. And make no mistake, this is war. But it's not a war against others. It's a war against comfort, against cowardice, against the quiet death of dreams. And every day you choose discipline over ease, action over excuses, truth over image. You win a battle, not just for yourself, but for every soul watching in silence, waiting to be reminded that it's possible. You are not just rising for you. You are rising for the broken, the forgotten, the unheard. You are the voice that says, I walked through hell and I built a home there. Amor Fati means you love every part of your story, even the parts that tried to destroy you, especially those, because those parts didn't end you, they revealed you. And what they revealed is terrifyingly beautiful, a spirit that cannot be tamed, a soul that does not yield, a fire that refuses to be extinguished. You have become what fate could never predict, what odds could never quantify, what fear could never silence. You have become you, and that is your final revolution. Now stand in front of your life and take a good look at it. Not just the highlight reel, not just the moments they clapped for, but the quiet nights, the silent battles, the doubts that ate away at your spine when no one was watching. That's your kingdom. Those ashes, that's your crown. Because the ones who truly rise are not the ones who avoided the fire. They are the ones who walked straight into it, with eyes wide open and fists clenched around their purpose. You have that fire in you. You've always had it. Buried, maybe. Forgotten, maybe, but never gone. It's the part of you that can't be broken, that no failure, no betrayal, no heartbreak could kill. It's the part that remembers who you were before the world convinced you to shrink. Amor Fati is not a philosophy for the faint of heart. It is a call to arms for those brave enough to own everything. Your joy, your grief, your triumphs, your tragedies, your victories, and your scars. It demands that you say, I would live it all again, exactly as it happened. Because without the pain, there would be no perspective. Without the chaos, there would be no character. Without the loss, there would be no limitless you. When you embrace your fate, fully, violently, fearlessly, you stop chasing life and start creating it. You stop asking, what is the meaning of this? And you start declaring, I will make it meaningful. This is not about being unshakable. It's about shaking and still standing. It's about being crushed and still rising. It's about knowing life owes you nothing and giving it everything anyway. And from that place, you don't just survive fate. You command it. You bend it. You breathe it. You build with it. You become the storm inside the storm. And when the world sees you rising, not because life made it easy, but because you refused to stay on your knees, you give others permission to rise too. You become a living invocation, a walking sermon, Proof that destiny doesn't belong to the chosen. It belongs to the committed. Look at the great ones. Lincoln lost more elections than he won, until the nation broke, and only his pain could lead it. Edison failed thousands of times, but still lit the world. Disney was fired for lack of imagination, until he built a kingdom from it. These weren't men born into glory, they were forged in hardship, and so are you. Your past is not your prison. It's your platform. Your flaws are not your shame. They are your signature. Every betrayal, every failure, every lonely morning. They gave you the wisdom no classroom could offer. They gave you you. And now, you owe it to the struggle to live full throttle, to leave nothing on the table, to write the kind of legacy they'll whisper about long after you're gone. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real, because you were relentless, because you were true. That's what the world is dying to see. Not perfection, not plastic, not another imitation. It wants to see you, unfiltered, undeniable, unbreakable. So what now? Now you rise. Not just once, not just today. Every single day. You rise when your body aches. You rise when your bank account mocks you. You rise when the door slams, when the dream fades, when the world says, you're done. You rise anyway, because that is what destiny demands, that you keep going, that you keep becoming. No one else will do it for you. No one else can, because this is your story, your fate, your fire. And now, it's time to wield it. Let your every action be a revolt against mediocrity. Let your every breath carry the force of 1,000 ancestors who survived so you could rise. Let your life scream, I did not run, I did not shrink, I did not settle. I faced it all, and I loved it all. That is Amor Fati. That is power. That is freedom. So step forward, not as a victim of fate, but as its architect. Step forward, not to ask what life can give you, but to claim what you were born to create. Step forward and rise above it all. Because you were never here to live a quiet life. You were here to burn.